Welcome, everybody, to Complaints and Media Training, where we're going to have a quick review of what we do when we receive complaints or inquiries and what to do when a situation with the media might arise. So, this will be a two-part session. I will cover the inquiries and complaints section, and then Susan's going to finish up with the media training. So, there are typically two types of inquiries or complaints: certification related and non certification related. Certification complaints typically involve inconsistent logging practices, and we don't get very many of these, but you may be contacted about one of our loggers or even another company's logging operation. So these complaints are usually handled through the State Implementation Committee, or the SIC, which is part of SFI, and they need to be handled in a timely manner. So please notify me as soon as possible so that I can turn them over to the SIC. The same with chain of custody complaints. These happen very seldom, but we do have to follow very specific reporting and notification requirements that are spelled out in the SFI and FSC standards. So again, send them my way so I can get them handled properly. Now, non-certification complaints or inquiries are what y'all are used to. Y'all have seen these before. They typically involve concerns over some kind of operation that we've done. Probably the most common complaint we get involves water quality. Other ones that y'all might be familiar with: smoke concerns, herbicide applications. At times we get calls from landowners who are wondering what we're spraying out there. They get nervous. So those are pretty common. Boundary line questions, or maybe even some damaged timber complaints. So when you get these calls or emails, we need to follow the process and make sure we have the documentation that is needed. So let's review the process. The first thing we want to do is make sure the calls or emails go to the right person. So if headquarters receives a call, it will be directed to the appropriate mill or region office and assigned. Or if the field or mill offices are called directly, the inquiry or complaint will be assigned to the appropriate forester or ranger based on the location of the complaint, or maybe the location that the forester works in, or at the discretion of the region forester or procurement manager. Now, once you're assigned the complaint, make sure you contact the person to better understand their concerns. Next, go and inspect the area. Make a plan of action. Update your supervisor on what's needed. If necessary, start contacting a contractor and get things lined up. Also, start taking some pictures of what you see out there. Now, quite often the problem is not on our property, and we need to convey this to the person sometimes who called with a complaint, and this might require an on-site visit with that landowner. Now, again, discuss this with your supervisor. Make sure everyone's on the same page, and they may want to go with you as well. You may also want to think about getting an expert involved if you need to. A good example is reaching out to the BMP coordinator when you have a water quality concern. You may want to talk to Ray Robbins if you have any legal questions. Again, keeping your supervisor in the loop and making sure they know what's going on. And if you do have to fix something, make sure you take pictures as evidence. We may need to show an adjacent landowner or even an auditor what we did. Pictures are a great example of documentation, and we do have to document, not only to have a record of responding to the complaints or inquiries that we get, but it's required by the standards. So if you have any questions on what you might need to do as far as documentation, please give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help you in any way I can. Now, the other way we document is through our contacts database. Now, everybody should be familiar with this, but we have made a few little improvements, some changes that we're going to go through here shortly. It's still located in the same place, and you can see the location there. Also, we have consolidated the databases from having 3 separate databases, depending on what type of complaint or inquiry it was, into just one database. So we are no longer having to figure out exactly where to put it. It's all going to go to the same place. All right, so let's pull up our 2025 new database here. We've already got some inquiries and complaints documented. So as you can see, we're continuing to use the same format as before. If you hover over the red little triangles in the columns, the different instructions will pop up that you can look at. So the first thing we want to do, of course, is enter the date you were contacted or when you reached out to someone in particular. And of course, the name of the person in the contacts information column. That's what we want. That's very important. The topic of inquiry. That's what this is all about. This is what we're reporting on. And we have a few good examples to go through. First one, Tony recorded a trash dump. The next one we have is one that Keith entered over some concerns of one of our harvest operations. Below here, let's see, scroll down a little bit. We have a verbal right-of-way recorded. Now, this is a great example of one that we need to record. You know, some people don't want to sign a LULA, and we understand that, but it's still a good idea to record that we have a verbal right-of-way, one for our protection as well as documenting that we've reached out to our stakeholders, our adjacent landowners. And this is a great place to do that. So another one that Sean entered in was a landowner called and reported that there was some debris from a harvest on his property. So these are all really good examples of different types of inquiries and complaints that we want to record. Of course, the location is very important, and then as well as who handled it. So the location for the trash dump, Tony put the exact coordinates in. That's great. If it's associated with the track, put the track number. If you want to put exact coordinates on there as well, that's fine too. Whatever you feel will best describe the location of this area of concern. Then, of course, the associate who's handling everything, we definitely need that in there. And the last column, results and responses and comments. This is what you want to record, what you did to the track, when you went to the track, who did you meet there, was an expert brought in, did you take pictures? If you took pictures, definitely we want to note that so we know where to look to bring them up and show an auditor or anybody else who's concerned. And then, of course, when was everything fixed? If there was some kind of B&P work that needed to be done, then we definitely need to say when it was completed. And I understand, things get busy, and you may not have time to do all this, and I understand that. So contact me, send me a text, email me, or just call me, and I'll fill this out for you. I just need a little bit of information. And if you don't have, enough information when you call or maybe in your text, I will reach out to you and get all the details that I need. So I will also continue to send out quarterly emails to remind you about updating the database. But again, reach out to me. I'm here to help you and can take care of this for you. I just need the information. Quick little reminder of, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we want to continue to be good stewards of the land, but we also want to be good neighbors. So please continue to do a great job addressing these issues in a timely manner and as thoroughly as possible. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Susan now.
Hi, my name is Susan Poole. I'm the Public Relations Director here at the Westervelt Company, and I want to talk a little bit about media training. We're not going to be preparing for interviews today, but really it's more about if you are contacted by the media, how should you respond? So when we talk about reputation, for us, it's a little bit different than this. We've been building our reputation for generations, but this is very relevant when you think about how quickly things can change. Today, media is immediate. It's live. There's no more waiting until the 10 o'clock news to find something out. When we talk about the media, what are the specific things you should do if you are contacted by the media? These are some of the things. If any of these happen, I need to be involved. The one quick note, when I say photographers, I'm talking about the ones that we haven't hired or invited or some on-site visit from somebody. But this is when someone pulls up in a news van outside your door. You need to call me right away. And these are other things too. These are things that you need to give me a call so we can talk through. One thing that's really easy to remember is call Susan. When you have media come up, when you have a question about media, give me a call. this QR code, this will scan and put my contact information directly on your phone. Go ahead and do that so you have my name and my number and my email, and you're able to get in touch with me very easy. So if you just scan this, you'll be able to add my contact to your phone if you don't already have it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Reporter 101. So who's the media? And, sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell who the media is. There's kind of blurred lines. On the left is who we traditionally think of as, as media. It's the reporter on his typewriter. But on the right is what it really is more today, the podcaster, somebody who's reaching a much wider audience than what we have now. So there can be a little bit of a confusion about who the media is. And that goes a little bit further. When we say paparazzi, this may be what we're thinking of, where you have kind of this crush of reporters, where, there's a news story and everybody wants a soundbite. This is actually more of what we usually see. We see a reporter who has a camera and a microphone and maybe a sound guy. Sometimes it's just a reporter and they do everything on their own. So this is what I work with a lot when we do something with an established media. But you being out in the field, this is going to be what you're more likely to see. You're going to see somebody with their cell phones. And one thing, it used to be very obvious when somebody had a camera and was filming you, but now everybody has a camera. And where we used to have the news that would come on at 10 o'clock at night, now it can be immediate. Things can be streaming right away. They can be live. So this is more what you're likely to see. So if you are approached by a reporter, what is it that they're looking for? They want a story. They want an interesting story. They want facts, because reputable media want facts that give them a serious story. They also want to be first. You heard it first here on WTWC. When we think about the media, especially when we're doing our job, we can kind of think of, we don't want them around, but the media, they genuinely want to capture a good story. And so we can work together. You can let me know when they're there and what they're looking for, and then I can work with them to get the information they need. So when you are approached by the media, there's some things that I need from you. I need to know who they are and how I can contact them. What's their deadline? I need to know what station or newspaper or site that they're with. Now, here's a warning. Not everybody is going to be from a channel you've heard of. We were talking about people doing streaming and online. Just because you haven't heard of them doesn't mean they're not a real reporter. Let me work on that. You give me the information and I'll figure that out if they're actually a legitimate reporter. It's also okay to say, what information are you looking for? But here's the thing. When they tell you what they're looking for, don't argue with them. Take that information, thank them, and then get back to me on that. You don't have to answer any questions. I'd rather you not answer any questions that they may ask you. One thing to remember, I want you to assume that everything is on the record. Assume that everybody has a microphone and that they are recording what you're saying. Here's a question I get a lot, can I say no comment? When somebody asks me a question, can I just say no comment? Actually, don't ever say no comment. That gives the impression that we may have something to hide. So I want you to answer and say why. Say, all media requests go through our public relations director. Here's her contact information. That's all you need to respond to a question. And then you provide that contact information and you send them over to me and let me work with them after that. So now that we've talked about media, I want to talk a little bit about other types of communication, things that we do here at work, and about conversations that we may have at work. And there are some things that when it comes to being in the workplace that you may really want to consider not introducing. Some of the things that probably not a good idea to talk about at work: politics and religion. These are very deeply personal topics and it could cause disagreements or offense among colleagues with different beliefs. Personal finances. I'm not telling you not to talk about your salary, But please be aware that if you do, if you talk about your salary or financial troubles, that can create imbalances. It can create some awkward situations. Health issues, that's another one. Talking about personal health issues can make people uncomfortable, and there is no guarantee of confidentiality if you are just talking about this with non-HR, non-medical personnel. And then again, any intimate details about your personal life, those can really blur professional lines and make coworkers uncomfortable. So those are all things that probably best to stay away from in the workplace. Some specific things to avoid in the workplace, gossip, spreading rumors about coworkers and management, that can damage reputation. You can foster a toxic work environment, so be very careful about doing that. Venting your frustrations about management, that can fuel some negativity. So, consider that before you share anything. And this should go without saying, keep your privileged company or project information confidential to maintain professionalism and trust. And that's something that we all need to do. And then any off-color jokes or innuendo, those can make colleagues uncomfortable and they could be considered harassment. One thing to remember, even if you're saying this to a friend or a coworker who's not offended, you don't know who may be overhearing that and who could be offended. So be very careful if you're considering talking about anything like that. When it comes to social media, we need to keep several of those same things in mind when it comes to social media, whether it's our own personal accounts or when it comes to talking about workplace or industry topics. So let's talk about some social media guidelines pretty quickly. And I want to point out, these are primarily for your benefit, not for the company. If you want to post things about the workplace, I want to encourage you to share things from official social media channels of Westervelt. And one reminder, if you go on Facebook, on your personal Facebook or on your personal social media accounts, and you air your grievances, there's an excellent chance that it's going to be seen by somebody you work with or you work for, and it could lead to an embarrassing or an uncomfortable situation. So let's talk about some guidelines to keep our social media activity from causing any additional stress for ourselves. When I talk about social media privacy, one of my biggest concerns is really for your privacy. These are all examples of things that can be found on our social media. These are a little bit scary, right? And it should be. These are things that we probably wouldn't be comfortable sharing with everyone, but they can often be found on our accounts. So just be very careful as you're sharing things that you're not giving away more than you really would like to. All of these different things, these are some of the risks of social media, some risks to our privacy. Data mining. Scammers don't need a lot of detail to steal your identity. They can start with what's available on social media to help target victims. Sometimes social media accounts aren't as private as you think. If you share something with a friend and they repost it, their friends can also see it, which means a whole new audience likes your post or sees your post. Even if you turn off your location settings, you can still be tracked by public Wi-Fi, cell phone towers, or websites. A lot of the things that can be found on social, they can lead to harassment and cyberbullying, doxing, those different types of things, false information. Social media spreads disinformation as quickly as anything that I've ever seen. And trolls can provoke users into really heated debates by manipulating emotions and getting them to talk about things that you would normally talk about. And then, of course, there's always the risk of malware and viruses of being hacked and your accounts being taken over. Cyber criminals can take over a social media account, and then they can distribute malware to both your account and all of your friends and contacts accounts. So be very careful when we're thinking about privacy. If you have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to our IS team. We'd be happy to talk to you about any of these things. When we think about social media, before we post anything that mentions Westervelt or mentions our industry, it's always a good practice to think about posts in the context of our 4 E's. Ethical, is it true and respectful? making sure that we're not endangering any of our business relationships, highlighting stewardship, and that we're providing correct information. Always a good idea to think about things that we do through the 4 E's. Let's talk about things you should be doing on social media. Be an ambassador for the company and for the industry. We have a great story, so let's be a great ambassador for that. Follow Westervelt's accounts and share that information. If you see something on our accounts, we want you to share that. That's wonderful information to share. Be very respectful and respect boundaries. And remember that you represent your company on social media. Don't post anything hateful or engage with trolls. And just a reminder, some of your coworkers might not want you to share a photo of them on social media, so be sure to respect their boundaries. Be helpful. Think before you're posting. Is the post you're sharing educational, topical, or informative? And if it's not, reconsider. We don't want to share content about the industry just for the sake of it. You want to fact check before posting. Again, lots of information out there. Be careful about sharing something too quickly. We want to be sure that we're maintaining confidentiality, and that's things like client lists, financial information, business strategies. When we're taking pictures at work, you want to be careful that you're not inadvertently capturing information on computer screens or written on whiteboards that we may not want out there on social media. Identify yourself as an employee. And this can get really tricky, but what we don't want to do is comment on some industry topic and not identify who we are. There's some ethical considerations with that. So if you have any questions about that, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you navigate with that. You want to remember that the internet is permanent, something that this young man at the bottom of the screen may not have remembered about tattoos. So be very careful about when you're mixing your business and personal lives on social media. And if you ever have any doubt, don't post it. Maybe most importantly on this list, talk to us. If you have any questions, talk to us. We'll be happy to talk to you about guidelines or give you some ideas for what you can be posting on social that's going to be a really good help. Let's talk about things that you shouldn't do on social. Don't ever discuss customers, clients, or vendors in any way unless you are authorized to do so and have their explicit permission, and you will absolutely know if that's true. If you have to wonder about that, it's not. So don't post anything about them. Don't use images or logos off the internet unless you're authorized to do so. Don't speak on behalf of the company if you are not authorized to do so. For example, don't say the Westervelt company believes XYZ. And again, if you have to wonder if you're authorized to speak on behalf of the company, you are not. Don't discuss any proprietary or confidential information. Don't comment on any controversial topics or industry-related topics or offer an expert opinion. If you see something that you think we need to weigh in on, come talk to us. Don't interact with trolls. Just it's best to stay out of those conversations. Don't share photos of people without their permission. Please don't forget cybersecurity. Only accept friend requests or connections from people that you actually know. Don't tag the company or other coworkers in inappropriate or controversial photos. And please don't get creative with the logo. If you need an official logo, give us a call. We'll be happy to provide that to you. So just some final reminders. It's really important that we remember who we are and what our role is in the social media community, which is to build our brand. Your post about your company should really reflect that goal. If you're in doubt about it, don't post it. We're going to have an opportunity to shine a light on our company. It's either going to be a positive light or a negative light. So we want to always keep that in mind with what we're posting, that we're taking that opportunity to shine a positive light. I want you to approach online forums the same way we do physical ones. Use sound judgment and common sense. What is it we stand for? What is it that you stand for? Why do you choose to work for your company? All just really good reminders in any social media or any type of communication. To finish up, if you have questions about media interactions or social media guidelines, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to walk you through the next steps. Thank you.